Okay, everyone, it's time for chapter 6 of The Fantastic Mr. Fox. This chapter is called The Race. We left off in a very suspenseful situation where our foxes were digging for their lives. So now we're wondering what is going to happen to them. A lot of you made predictions at this point. So we have Mrs. Thomas and Mr. Moran here today to continue the reading with us. Yay! All right, let's get right into it. The race. Now there began a desperate race. The machines against the foxes. In the beginning, the hill looked like this. After about an hour, as the machine bit away more and more soil from the hilltop, it looked like this.
Sometimes the foxes would gain a little ground, and the clanking noises would grow fainter, and Mr. Fox would say, "We're going to make it, I'm sure we are." But then a few moments later, the machines would come back at them, and the crunch of the mighty shovels would get louder and louder. Once the foxes actually saw the sharp metal edge of one of the shovels as it scraped the earth just behind them.
"Keep going, my darlings," panted Mr. Fox. "Don't give up." "Keep going," the fat Bogus shouted to Bunce and Beans. "We'll get him any moment now." "Have you caught sight of him yet?" Beans called back. "Not yet," shouted Bogus. "But I think you're close." "I'll pick him up with my bucket," shouted Bunce. "I'll chop him to pieces."
But by lunchtime, the machines were still at it, and so were the poor foxes. The hill now looked like this. The farmers didn't stop for lunch. They were too tired to finish the job.
"Hey there, Mr. Fox," yelled Bunce, leaning out of his tractor. "We're coming to get you now." "You've had your last chicken," yelled Bogus. "You'll never come prowling around my farm again." A sort of madness had taken hold of the three men. The tall, skinny Bean and dwarfish Potbelly Bunce were driving their machines like maniacs, racing the motors and making the shovels dig at a terrific speed. The fat Bogus was hopping about like a dervish and shouting, "Faster! Faster!"
By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, this is what had happened to the hill. The hole the machines had dug was like the crater of a volcano. It was such an extraordinary sight that the crowds of people came rushing out from the surrounding villages to have a look. They stood on the edge of the crater and stared down at Bogus, Bunce, and Bean. "Hey there, Bogus, what's going on? We're after a fox. You must be mad." The people jeered and laughed, but this only made the three farmers more furious and more obstinate and more determined than ever not to give up until they had caught the fox. So that is the end of chapter 6, everyone. Okay, everyone, it's time for chapter 7. We'll never let him go. Continuing the suspense of chapters 4, 5, and 6. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Beans switched off the motor of his tractor and climbed down from the driver's seat. Bunce did the same. Both men had had enough. They were tired and stiff from driving the tractors all day. They were also hungry. Slowly, they walked over to the small fox's hole in the bottom of the huge crater. Bean's face was purple with rage. Bunce was yelling at the fox with horrible words that cannot be printed. Bogus came waddling up. "Dang and blast that stinky fox," he said. "What do we do now?"
"I'll tell you what we don't do," Bean said. "We don't let him go." "We'll never let him go," Bunce declared. "Never, never, never," cried Bogus. "Did you hear that, Mr. Fox?" yelled Bean, bending low and shouting down the hole. "It's not over yet, Mr. Fox. We're not going home until we've strung you up like a dead dingbat." Whereupon the three men all shook hands with one another and swore a solemn oath that they would not go back to their farm until Fox was caught. "What's the next move?" asked Bunce, the pot-bellied dwarf.
"We're sending you down the hole to fetch him up," said Bean. "Now down you go." "Not me," screamed Bunce, running away. Bean made a sickly smile. When he smiled, you saw his scarlet gums. You saw more gums than teeth. "Then there's only one thing to do," he said. "We starve him out. We camp here day and night watching the hole. He'll come out in the end. He'll have to." So Bogus and Bunce and Bean sent messages down to their farms asking for tents, sleeping bags, and supper.
All right, everyone, that concludes that very, very quick chapter. It's kind of a transition chapter bringing us between one really suspenseful moment to another.